Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card is a pretty easy to make Christmas card. I'm going to be using the Peaceful Pine set again. I know I'm using a different tree this time. I'm also using these stitched ovals by Simon Says Stamp and my Peerless watercolors. This is how I store them, and I'll have a link to the post where I explain how to make this little storage folder with the separating plastic and all that to keep them nice and clean. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my tree stamp with some Versamark ink onto some 90-pound Strathmore watercolor paper. I use 90-pound because it's a little bit thinner and it's easier to layer so it doesn't get too bulky. Because if it's going to warp and it's thick when it's warped, it seems to be a lot harder to adhere and still look nice on your cardstock. So anyway, so I'm going to heat emboss this with some white embossing powder. And then I'm going to mark where this oval is going to be. So I'm using the second from the largest, and I'm going to put it over my image, and I'm just going to mark it in different areas with a pencil. And this is not going to show because I'm actually marking the outside of the die, so I know how far out to take my watercolor. Now this is just some water, and rather than brushing water on first to the cardstock, since I'm covering the whole thing, just like I did the other day, I'm just going to go ahead and spray it with water first. Now I've got a medium-sized brush, and I'm just going to take some of this Peerless, and it's paint on a piece of cardstock. It's really amazing how much color is in these little paper pieces. But I'm just going to drop it. Because I've already got water on my cardstock, it's going to spread pretty easily. I'm going to make sure I get some good coverage over the letters so that they're readable, they're legible. And as you can see, I'm just sort of dabbing it. So I'm just kind of dabbing all around, and I'm picking up more color as I need it. And so I'm just going to work my way up here. The first one is Viridian Green, and now I'm going to move up to the Sky Blue. And I always, not always, but most of the time use colors in the rainbow order. So green, blue, purple is how I'm working this. And I put the purple at the top, which I really like as a holiday color. So I'm going to speed through this a little bit more, and you can see how the water is spreading upward and it's blending these colors all together. And I'm trying to get some areas of dark, some areas a little lighter, and I'm getting that effect by doing the tapping instead of brushing. So I really don't brush. And then I'll also add some water in between the two colors to get them to blend a little bit better. Now after I've got all my color laid down, it looks pretty even. So to mix it up a little bit, I'm dropping water. So I'm just taking plain water, and I'm dropping some pretty large drops of water, and then I'm just going to sort of kind of fix things up a little bit. You know, it's one of those things where it's really hard to stop and figure out when you've had enough. So I decided to add a little bit more green at the bottom, a little bit more dark area of purple at the top. I really wanted it to be, I wanted there to be a lot of variation. So now I'm dropping a little bit of water, and what the water is going to do is it's going to create kind of a colorless area and push the water around so it creates a water stain. It's just a nice, pretty, kind of different look. And so the nice thing about these Peerless watercolors is that you can layer them. Notice I keep dropping the paintbrush thinking, okay, I'm done. And I'm like, one more thing. But you can keep adding layer and layer, and you can let it dry and then add more layer. But it's really easy to use these watercolors. All right, now I've got that all done. I'm going to take a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 Nina Solar White cardstock. I'm going to cut my oval out, and you'll see these ovals have stitches on the outside right here, so I get a nice frame, and then on the inside. And I'm going to save this piece for later because I have a card that I'm using these ovals with that you are going to love. I can't wait to post it. Okay, so I got some Peerless watercolor on my tree that I didn't want. What I typically do is I take a tissue and I dab it on a baby wipe so I don't get too much water on it, and usually it comes right off, but I actually heat set this because I got impatient waiting for it to dry. So the first card I made with this technique, I didn't have any issues with the watercolor staining the embossed area, and I think it's because I didn't use my heat tool to dry it. So I would recommend letting it dry on its own. So I was really disappointed that I had these stains. I was trying to get them off. So at first I just really tried to wipe it a lot with my baby wipe, and that didn't work. And then I took my aqua painter, I just applied a bunch of water, and I thought that might work. And it did remove some of the color, but I think the color was actually from the cardstock in the words. So that didn't work either. So finally I decided, well, I'm going to try an alcohol wipe because alcohol just seems to clean up everything. So I just have this little wipe that I got from the drugstore, and it took it right off the embossed area. So I'm going to quickly speed this up a little bit and show you that I just kind of went over all the whole thing, and it really didn't take much ink out of the letters. It really stayed on top of the embossing part and took the color off that. But the only bad thing, and I've got a close-up here, is it took the shine off of my embossing powder, which I was not happy about that either because I liked the glossy look of the embossing powder. So I was really hopeful that it would heat up and get shiny again, and sure enough it did. So I just heat set it again, and the powder melted and it became a nice shiny finish. So anyway, that's how I ended up creating this. So anyway, if you decide to try this, I would not heat set it. I would just let it dry by itself. Now I'm going to take my panel that I cut the oval out, and I'm just going to mark the edges so that I can cut back my tree panel, because I'm going to put the oval on top of it. So I'll put some Scotch foam tape on all the different sides of this piece, and then I'll peel off the backing, and I'm going to mat it right there on top of the Christmas tree. And now you can't see it because I cut just inside those pencil lines that I marked. Alright, now my frame is popped up, so I'm going to put my tape runner on my watercolor paper, and I'll put it on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of Nina Solar White cardstock. And that's the card for today. I really like the way this turned out, and I think you could really assembly line this. Nice, simple, beautiful card for your bulk Christmas card if you wanted to. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.